Hello, people and bots. Grandpa Canuck here, and we are in Hearts of Iron 4 Black Ice mod with a tutorial today on the 1936 starting German Navy. Now, the Navy for Germany starts in 3 ports. Firstly, you have here at Wilhelmshaven, Kiel, and over here in East Prussia. Whoop. And that is your locations. Now, the fleet has a large amount of ships, and it has lots of ships that are getting built. Now, these may be obsolete, but it doesn't mean that you necessarily have better ships built already. And a ship like this is almost completed within a day. So some people like going through and eliminating some of these, depending on how they're going to play their Navy. Secondly, you can go through and alter where you want these ships to come on, depending on how you wish to organize them. That is up to you. I like putting everything into a training fleet, and then training the ships, and then sending them to their respective task forces. Okay, let's look at the different ships that the Germans have in their Navy to start with. Now, if we bring it up here, you can see we have 20 torpedo boats, 39 escort ships, 8 cruisers, 14 submarines, and 2 capital ships. Now, the capital ships are pre-dreadnought Deutschland class, and are very, very outdated and not very useful. The submarines are type 2A and type 2B. Now, you have a type 2C already designed, so these are both kind of outdated, and that's why it shows up. The cruisers, the Deutschland class here, the Nuremberg, the Leipzig, the Königsberg, and the Edam. The Edam is a very old cruiser, and it's a 1. The Königsberg, the Leipzig, and the Nuremberg have similarities. You notice that if you click this little let's get into it here. Sorry. Let's get into the cruisers where we were. Okay. If you click on, you can see where it's a 2, a 1, and a 0. Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 0. And you can recommission them, so it's no longer obsolete. So what are the differences between these? Well, the Edam is an older vessel and very, very straightforward. When you look at the different classes, you can see they cost different amounts. And if you wanted to compare them together, you can click on the variant and bring up the next one closest to it, in this case the Leipzig, and you can see that the numbers are different. So why are these two classes different? Okay. Well, first of all, you'll notice that the Leipzig, when you hover over the maximum speed, has a 70,000 horsepower steam diesel. And this has a 65,000. So there's an engine difference, and that's going to be a costly upgrade if you wanted to upgrade the Königsberg to be a Leipzig class. Now, besides that, there are some other small differences as well between them. You will notice there's differences in the visibility and sub detection. So it's a cruiser. A cruiser. This has a float plane. This doesn't. Okay. So there's an engine difference and a float plane difference between the Konigsberg and the Leipzig. So if you're going to modify them or put them to different use, okay, the Konigsberg has the float plane. The Leipzig does not. Now, they may be both level 2s, but the Leipzig costs less, and that's because of the armor difference. Here you can see 50 millimeters belt and 20 millimeter deck. That's the Leipzig. Let's bring the Konigsberg, and when you hover over the armor, you'll see that it's 63 millimeters and 25 deck. Similar, you could go between the Leipzig, and let's bring up the Nuremberg. Where's the Nuremberg? There we go. And we notice that there are differences, but that's a 70,000 and that's a 70,000. Okay, so why? Range? Range is the same. Well, maybe it's the armor. 50 and 20. 50 and 20. Okay. Well, the armor's the same. So what is the difference? Well, as it turns out, if you look close enough, you'll notice that the Leipzig has 4 high-angle batteries. Okay. And when you go on the Nuremberg, it has 8 high-angle batteries. Okay, there's 4 there, and no float plane on the Leipzig. Nuremberg has 8 and a float plane. So the only difference between the Leipzig and the Nuremberg is adding a float plane and adding more guns. So that is the difference between those two cruisers. So upgrading the Leipzig to a Nuremberg class, or if you upgrade the Nuremberg to something else, the Leipzig could be easily upgraded into that, where the Konigsberg not so easily. Okay, that's the light cruisers. Let's look at some of the other ships. You start off with one heavy cruiser, so there's not much to compare there. It's a one-off. The pocket battleships, the Deutschland class and the Graf Spee, look very, very similar, yet there's a cost difference between them. Okay, and the Graf Spee here, and if we put up the compare to the Deutschland class, okay, we'll quickly see that there's 100 millimeter belt and 40 millimeter deck, and the armor here. Whoops, wrong Deutschland. Always mess that up. Where it's 88 and 35 compared to 140. So if you were going to change the Deutschland class to be the same as the Graf Spee, all 3 into one class, you're going to have to change the armor. And do you want to downsize the Graf Spee or increase the Deutschland? That would be a choice. The old battleships, of course, are also called the Deutschland class. Confuses me, but these are from a different era. These are pre-Dreadnought, pre-World War I. They're a hangover of what the Germans were able to keep after the Treaty of Versailles from the old ships, incredibly old. Okay. And of course, there's no capital ships yet. Down to destroyers. Notable difference between the 1934A and 1934 are the two classes of destroyers the Germans start with. Okay, and when we bring up the 1934A, where is it? $1934. Oh, by the way, hit the outdated, so you get the outdated ones up here. 1934. Why can't I find it? 1934A. So you notice that there's a slight speed difference, there's a range difference. Okay. So when you look at it, 60,000, 60,000. Medium short cruising range. Medium short cruising radius. It's the same. So why is there a difference? Well, here we have a early in the 1934, and when you look at the 1934A, this is an improved engine. So the entire difference between the 1934 and 1934A is, rather than the early, it has the improved engine. So again, upgrading the 1934s to the 1934As is costly, replacing that that engine, because it's 536 IC cost to it, okay, which is almost a third of the cost of the destroyer, just to make them the same. So you'll have to make a decision on whether you want to amalgamate it into one class and pay the appropriate naval experience points for developing two classes, or bite the bullet on the conversion cost and convert it all into one. So are you going to keep your destroyers, or are you going to upgrade them, or just leave them the way they are and build entirely new ones? So these are things you need to do in organizing. Just simply because this is obsolete and that's new doesn't mean that you upgrade those into these. There's a number of things you have to consider. Smaller than destroyers, we have torpedo boats. There's a series of 6 different outdated torpedo boats. You have no level 2s to start with, but you have 6 different ones. And when you look, it's Mark 0, Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4, Mark 5. So it's the same basic design, but there are differences. And you can see the cost goes up substantially from $553 to $982. Well, I've labeled these with some of the things. This has 2 torpedoes. This has 2 torpedoes and 1 AA. 4 torpedoes, 2 AA. Well, I didn't label that one very well. 3 torpedoes and an AA. 6 torpedoes and an AA. 6 torpedoes and an AA. So when you start looking closer, you're going to see differences as well as the armaments, okay, with these torpedoes. The 23, and let's just bring up the 24. When you start looking at them, you see that it has a difference in the firepower. Okay, so what is the difference? 3-gun battery, 10 centimeter interwar. 3-gun battery, 10 centimeter early. There's a gun difference. So the 23s have an early gun, The 24s have an interwar gun. And that's the entire difference between the 23s and the 24. So that's not a costly thing to convert the 23s into 24s. When you go down the list, some of the other changes in these may look small, like the 150 changing to the 180s. There's a big speed difference. Okay. 10,000 SHP, 15,000 SHP. So there is a huge difference because of the engine change. Okay, and when you're looking at the engine change from a 10,000, whoops. You have a 10,000 here, okay, which is the IC cost of 113. And let's bring up the 180. And here you have an IC cost of 185. So 75 increase just on the engine with that. And there's various other small little changes. These are not big boats, so I don't want to take a lot of time on them. Same with the escorts. I've relabeled some of these so that you can see the straightforward difference. Some of them have mine sweeping capability, some have mine laying capability, and some have other capability. So again, Mark 0, Mark 1, Mark 0, Mark 0, Mark 1, Mark 0, Mark 1, Mark 2. So these three are similar. These two are similar. This one is alone, and those two are similar. And you can start looking at them and see what the differences are. Again, these are small boats, but you can very, very simply, click on the 27, go to the 57, okay, and it doesn't look like there's any difference. Amazing. But there is a very, very slight difference between the two. Okay. Mine sweeping, mine laying. Okay. So again, you can look at them. One of the interesting differences here is you notice that this one is a lot more expensive. These are all basically the same. So what is different between this and the Brummer? Let's bring it up. And what you're going to notice really, really fast here is this has a diesel engine right here. Oh, hello, Bonnie and Clyde. My two green cheek conures have come out to have a chit chat. Hey, you guys should be in night-night. Go on. Yeah, night-night. You go night-night. I'm not going night-night. You go night-night. So the fact it has an expensive diesel engine is the difference between those two models for sure. They also, the Brummer has 2 added guns. Okay. Submarines. You actually have a Type 1A and a Type 7A. And you're still making some of the 1As and the 7As in the beginning here. And you need to decide, whether you wish to complete all of these ships or not. There's the 2Bs. There's a 1A, okay, which is an SS, which is still being built, but it's 3/4 done. So this is essentially an obsolete, but there are more, not as much finished 7As. Okay. And there's a definite difference between that. This is a level 2, that's a level 3. The SSC, coastal submarines, there's actually 3 classes here. And again, they're very similar, right? Mark 0, Mark 1. So there is a cost difference here, okay? And then this is actually a level 3 submarine, but you're not building any Cs yet. And a lot of people overlook this, and they just upgrade the older submarines rather than taking and developing the 2C. So that's an overview of the submarines. So this is a much better submarine in its numbers to this one, but you don't have any. So I find labeling some of these boats to keep them organized, such as the escorts. Sometimes you want these escorts to defend convoys. Okay. This one, for instance, the Grill, has an anti-aircraft, and it has no mine laying capability. So it's much better used as a convoy escort rather than doing mine laying. Okay. The submarines definitely have differences. The upgradability of the pocket battleships and the light cruisers, right? As we said, the Leipzig becoming a Nuremberg is straightforward. The Königsberg becoming one of those is not quite so easy. So that's an overview of what you start with the German Navy. As to operate and run it, that would be a different tutorial. If you have any questions of what I've covered, please leave them, and I will get back to you. Yeah, I expected to get through this tutorial without my birds being around. They went to bed. I don't know why they're still up. But anyway, so this is Grandpa Canuck with Bonnie and Clyde, my 2 green sheet conures. We'll say goodbye for this tutorial, and we'll catch you next time. So all you people and bots out there, be good to one another. Take care. Bye-bye.